So welcome everyone, I'm Leslie. I'm the Outreach Coordinator at the Vermont Center for Geographic Information. And I'm going to start out today with just a very brief intro of who we are, and then also a very brief overview about GIS, Geographic Information Systems. So VCGI, where I work, is a division of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development as of about 2 weeks ago. Before that, we were a public nonprofit for many years, for about 20 some odd years. We were created by the state, so we've always been an entity of the state. And our primary purpose is to be a central data warehouse of mapping data. So as this technology grew in the 80s, there were a lot of different public and private organizations, or I should say local, regional, and state public institutions that were developing data. And there was recognition that it didn't make sense for everybody to keep recreating the same data over and over again. Things like roads data, waterways, things that people use over and over. And so VCGI was created as a place to hold that public data. It's considered public information, and therefore it's available to everyone for free, and try to make it as accessible as possible so that people could actually use it. So mostly what we do is we have this big pile of data. You can go to our website and search for what type of data we have, and then you can download it. And it includes different kinds of data, stuff that you would see just on regular maps, as well as the aerial imagery that you might see in Google Earth, as well as LiDAR data. If you've heard about LiDAR data, which allows you to do very detailed elevation maps. And then the other things we do are things like this that have to do with raising people's awareness about the technology, about the resources available to them, answering questions about how to access the data, a little bit about how to use the technology, how to use the data. And then we do have linked from right the front page on our website an online map viewer, which is very similar to a bunch of other map viewers that are available. So on this page, I just went into the Map Center Interactive Map section. You can see there's a big long list of different interactive map viewers, all sorts of online mapping applications that allow you to access public data layers. And like Google Maps, they allow you to turn layers on and off. They allow you to zoom in and out. You have a lot more local Vermont data on these viewers than you would on most of the national or international things that you would access, which is what's so useful about them. So, my very quick thing about GIS, actually. Oh. I've forgotten here. So very briefly, what's special about GIS, which again stands for Geographic Information Systems, is that it is a digital mapping system that allows you to layer map layers, for one thing. It's not just like a scanned map, obviously. Each layer, if you sort of imagine everything being teased apart, is a separate data layer, which allows you to create maps, a little more custom maps. But the other thing is that each data layer, and I'm excluding imagery for the moment, but data layers like, say, ones that might show watershed boundaries or rivers, they are really composed of two different things. One is the information about where those features are on the Earth. So, where does this line that represents a river fall on the Earth? What direction do the different pieces of it go? Where does it turn? So that can be drawn on the map. But it also contains the information that might be attached to that geographic information. So in the case of a river, it might be, for each little section of that river, it might be the width from bank to bank. It might be the depth. It might be the name of the river, which isn't going to change over those pieces, but nonetheless, for each little piece, you might have the name attached. It might be the class or the, whatever the technical information about that hydrographers know about water. So similar with point data that maybe shows houses. So we have data from the 911 system, eSite data. And each point represents a house and has all this other information attached to it. The address of the house, the type of structure it is actually, whether it's residential or commercial or public, So those two different things are called features, which are the actual stuff that you're representing on the map, and attributes. And the attributes are really important because it just gives you a whole other world of information that you're dealing with that you can use for analysis, that you can use for labeling, that you can just use to represent the data. So that's all I'm going to say about how it all works. And I think it'll become clear to you as we go through this why that's important. So here's the Agency of Natural Resources Atlas. And this is using an online mapping system that's actually one of the few examples of state government being efficient. Because this system was purchased between several different agencies and departments. They're sharing the cost of it, and they're making lots of different mapping applications depending on their particular need. So the Natural Resources Atlas is one of the most popular. They really created it for their internal staff to answer questions and work with the public, but it's become an incredibly popular thing for everyone because it's available to everyone. The first thing I'll say is that the way the guy who set this up did it was to try not to overwhelm people who are not GIS professionals. And although I'm sure he's absolutely right in doing that, it always frustrates me a little bit because I need to see the data layers and to see all my tools. So if this works for you, just to start here and then use the quick tools, and I'll show you how to interact with the map in general as well. So you can see that you can zoom to a town, you can find an address. You can do a lot of things just from this quick tools menu. That's fine. But I need to turn on additional functionality by opening up the toolbar. So that's just a toggle. You can make it go away again by doing that. But I like that toolbar. There's a lot there. And then over here on the left where he's kind of got some introductory information and also links to orientation videos, which is they're really good. They're important. They're not too long. So if that will be helpful to you, keep that in mind. And some other links. I'm actually going to turn that into the list of map layers. So this is what I'm used to looking at in any GIS system. We have the list of the map layers, we have the image of the map, and then we have all sorts of tools and buttons up above that let us do stuff. So here's the first thing. We've got all these data layers. You can turn things on and off. Right now we're zoom, and the other thing about this sort of system is it automatically shows layers at an appropriate zoom level. So you're not going to see everything when you're zoomed out like this because it would all just look like a big black blob, obviously. I'm actually going to change the background since it is dark in here. So that's one nice thing. You can change your background. By default, this had on a color imagery, which as you zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, you're going to see a lot more detail out at this level. Obviously, it's just a lot of green, but you're going to see a lot of detail on the ground actually as you zoom in on that. So it's a very useful background. For this zoomed out stuff, we're going to do something simpler. One of the most useful things on here, and this may or may not be true for you guys depending on what scale you want to look at things, but I just want to point out that we have what we call parcel data in here. And you'll notice when I turn that on, nothing happens because, again, we're not at the right zoom level for this to show. And you can also tell that, if you can see the difference, this data layer is a little bit grayed out, the name of the data layer. If I just do a left click on the data layer, it opens up what's called a context menu. So there's this menu that's specific to that data layer, and it gives us a bunch of options. One of them is zoom to visible scale. So if you're interested in a particular layer, it's not showing right now, you can sort of tell it's because you're not at the right zoom level. You can always zoom to the visible scale for that particular data layer by just clicking on this. If it's, most of the data layers in here are statewide, maybe not all of them, most of them are. If it's not a statewide layer, zooming to extent means it will zoom to the most zoomed out it needs to be to include all the features in that layer. You can actually change the symbolization on many of these layers, which is pretty amazing given the way that online mapping has progressed over the years. Is sort of amazing, the amount of customization that you can do now. This is the kind of system that would have cost tens of thousands of dollars for someone to develop in the past, and you can just go use it for free, which is really nice. And it's just much more customizable. All right, so let's just zoom to visible scale. So you can see that for this data, you do have to be zoomed in quite a bit. Choose the background. Interestingly, we've turned on the parcels, but I believe we zoomed into a town that doesn't have parcels, which illustrates something about the parcel data. So let's go to a town that does have parcel data. Now, I forgot to check yesterday whether Hyde Park has.
Yeah, it does.
It does, okay, good. And you know that it's on here?
Yes.
Okay, great. You can see if I start typing it in, it gives me an option, or maybe more if there's.
We should have parcel data. Is that maybe because of the map?
Still, I think we need to zoom in a little bit more.
Well, I did. No.
That's Green River Reservoir, right? That's
Oh, wait, you're right.
I usually have just the regular map on it.
Well, you mean the background map?
Yeah.
Yeah, that shouldn't matter.
Oh, that's right.
Layers. It's more spelled
So it definitely does.
I know Hyde Park does. Is it because you don't have the watershed boundary?
No, that's a good question though, because, yeah, so as you can see, the way this is organized, if you see a plus sign over to the left of what seems to be a data layer, that really means that that's kind of a category of data. And if you click on the plus sign, it'll open up. But no, the watershed boundary data set's at the same level. Oh, actually, you know what? You're right though. It is because, no, in our base map is trying to.
I think you're not in it close enough.
Yeah, but even when I look, see how this is sort of grayed out now? That means I am zoomed in. Right, I'm checking my town that I know for a fact is. Okay, maybe the problem is our parcels for us today, which is unfortunate. I forgot to check with my colleagues to make sure that everything was going to be working today when I go out and demonstrate.
It doesn't matter, the base map that you selected doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't.
For parcels.
No, and that's a good point. So the base map is really just another layer, but it's sort of set aside because it is what's going to be underneath everything else. And to be honest, I'm not sure where they separate them out because it is just another layer, but it will always be underneath everything.
So is the default Bing? What is the default?
I think by default it was either Bing or Esri World Imagery, or it was a color.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so forget about parcel data, but any other day it would work. The day that I'm trying to demonstrate it. And other data layers I wanted to point out are contours, which is another service from us, so let's hope that that's not the problem. Yeah, so that's what should happen with parcel data. We turn on the contours and they will show up and be labeled appropriately as you zoom around. Flood zones. Let's start looking at some of the water-related layers. So as you can see, there's all these different categories of data. So whichever of these are of interest to you, here's stream crossings. There's another thing, if you see what looks kind of like a little legend symbol on there, you can click on that to actually see the legend. So the stream crossings layer is based on the stream geomorphic assessments that have been done for a variety of streams, not the whole state, it's not comprehensive, but where they have been done and where the data is available, you'll find it on here. You can see it's a pretty simple symbology. Red means impassable, green means fully passable. One of the other neat ways that you can interact with this map is that if you put your cursor over a feature and right click, again you get a sort of a different context menu, and you can click on what's here. So for that spot on, oh, that's interesting. It's giving me parcels. And
And then the stream crossing is below.
It's just interesting, the parcels is there. You can't see the parcel data.
Well, it could be a very large parcel.
That's true, actually, I might be using better person. So here's different data layers, because I've got multiple data layers. I'm clicking on a spot, it doesn't really know which data layer I want, so it gives me some options. Stream crossing, if that's the one that I want, I can click. First of all, notice that what this information here, we see what kind of structure is this? It's a culvert. What is the retrofit potential for this? Remember, it was a red dot, which means right now it's impassable. What's the retrofit potential? Now we have a code called LLL, which of course we don't know what that means. Well, maybe you guys do. Some people might. But that's where sometimes you get into issues with the attribute data. So that's what this is attribute data for one particular feature that I crossed on. Now, the other neat thing about this, though, is that this is a link. So if I click on stream crossing, it opens up this other box that gives me more information, actually, that gives me more attributes. So I'm clicking on the Bolton Valley Access Road. It's a tributary to Joyner Brook. Tells me the date of the assessment. A bunch of information. Tells me more about the culvert. Yep.
Does that feet?
That's a good question.
8 feet is quite a drop.
Yeah, but this is Bolton Valley Access Road.
Yeah.
It could be 8 feet easily. And finally, up here, notice that we've got another link to the specific report for this. I think it's for this overall study, this overall geomorphic assessment, which means not just for this one culvert, but for all the culverts in this particular study.
Jim, do we have that here for a while?
For some watersheds or for some streams?
Culverts.
Covered
Yeah.
here?
So you can see this is Lower Winooski below Bolton Dam is a particular study that was done.
So it's just the structure list, it's not the actual geomorphic assessment.
Well, it's an interesting question because notice where this has now taken us. This has actually taken us to the web page where I think you get access to everything.
Yeah, if you go to reports, then you
Yeah. I think the key is to keep track of your ID number, and then you can start looking everything up. And to be honest, unfortunately I had a hard time. I was not able to reproduce what I saw someone from the rivers section actually demonstrate about this, about going from the map into the reports and the information. And I couldn't reproduce what he did for some reason, which was to go in here to, well, it doesn't matter since I can't reproduce it, but it was a particular thing that you got into that seemed really useful in terms of, in a fairly straightforward way, giving you information about this, the aquatic animal passage aspect of this. But yeah, so you can see that this does get you into all of the information.
And that's all the information for that reach, or all the information under the stream geomorphic assessment page for A&R, like that left
Well, so
bar.
it's taken us directly into the one for this reach,
Right.
but no, I think we can
You
get
went-
into everything over here.
Okay, like if
That's-
you went to reports, you could populate all the reports for the
Yeah.
mile hours. Okay.
Yes, this is what happens. One of the things happening. I'm not sure what's going on with the website. So yeah, so the key is that it'll kind of get you into that, and as long as you keep track of your ID number, if you are in the right reach, then you should be able to get more information. So yeah, do we have these? There's my parcel data. Oh, so there's the Bolton parcel data at least.
That's a huge parcel.
Yeah, so again, this is on the Bolton Valley Access Road, so I think if we might actually be looking at some Bolton Valley land, or maybe just some land that got divided up into very large parcels. No, we're not that far up,
Mhm.
that would be up at the top. Okay, so there's some interesting, so Fish and Wildlife, as you can see, has a bunch of interesting stuff in it. Yeah.
The parcel
Yeah.
would be the
Yeah,
shading. I don't know if that's something like.
Oh, turn off the,
This, right there, the shading scale. Yeah,
the contours?
well.
The thing that makes each feature show up in
Oh,
different.
I see.
That's
The
helpful.
transparency.
Transparency, yeah.
Well, that's not the problem though, because I mean, before they just weren't showing and now they are. So, but yes, that's a good point that you can change that. I think most of these by default are set to be not transparent. But that's a good point that if, so like with something like contours, I might feel like that's a little bit overwhelming, so I can dim it down a little bit. Yeah, so that is a good way that you
See other
can,
features.
right. If you're wanting to have a lot of information on there, but yet it's becoming a little too much, you can dim some stuff down. Managed lands, urban districts, right, watershed protection. So you can see that we have dams. I'm not sure what IWI's biomonitoring sites are.
Oh, those are the really important ones.
Oh,
So those are state monitoring sites. We look at the biomonitoring criteria, and those are how we decide whether a stream is impaired or not.
Oh.
So for a watershed group or anybody wanting to know about water resources, then that's important.
Pelch.
Joyner Brook might have a couple on it, I'm not sure.
Which town, Mike?
I mean, Joyner Brook right here, oh yeah, look, see.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, it has actually good range, so the yellow right there, that was an impaired crib at one point.
Oh, they're labeled, although you can't see
Right,
them.
so if you actually click on on each of the biomonitoring sites, so if you click on one,
here.
yeah, to get some more information. Still thinking.
Karen, what does IWIS stand for? Inventory or something?
You know, I do it once and I just don't ever think about it.
Ambient biomonitoring.
Okay, so
Biomonitoring
then
indexes.
from there, you can.
Ambient biomonitoring
Right.
indexes.
This is the biomonitoring. So you can the date's important. So that was 2000. So it was 15 years ago. If you can read any of that, like richness and whatever, then that's fine. If you can't, just knowing what the score was, anything that's good or above is passing. Fair is not fair.
And which one on here is the score? Is it called score?
They do. Well, I mean, actually, the color.
Right there, fair.
Yeah, I mean, the color tells you what it is.
If it's,
Oh, that's-
if it's
Oh, assessment.
fair or poor, it would be fair.
Yeah. And then the other thing that's cool is you can actually go to chemistry then too. It's only a one-shot deal, but for the details, go to view the chemistry data just there. And it will tell you then phosphorus, nitrogen, turbidity, but again, it's only one sample. So you can't, it's more, for the most part, to give you a general sense, but, whatever. So.
It's not showing stuff over time, is that
Right. So phosphorus is really low. It's like, okay, it's a mountain stream, that makes total sense.
So Karen, who does the biomonitoring of those sites? You said it was done quite some time ago for some.
So our BAS lab does. That's all that, I mean, they spend their whole field season going around. Every 5 years, they go to a different basin. I mean, they have a couple of basins they work on sometimes, but every basin gets looked at once every 5 years. They have a standard set of monitoring sites. Some of them they drop, so that's why you'll see sometimes they haven't been monitored for 15 years because those yellows were actually, that was a violation there, that trip, because of some logging. And so they went in because they were asked to because there was sedimentation, but they don't go back because it isn't their long-term monitoring site. So.
None of the La Rosa lab is data.
Not yet. We're hoping. I mean, that would be great.
Leslie, I have a question. So, when you go into, when you clicked on a layer, you were able to get into the attributes.
Yep.
And if you're working in GIS, you're able to go in and look at the metadata and it'll have descriptions of the attributes
Yeah,
and how
that's
the data is collected. Can you access?
That's actually what I was going to, that was actually what I just
Okay.
went back to check whether that was available. So what you're going to find in this data, so when I do this, just a simple left click on the name of the data layer, if there's a link to metadata, this is where it will be.
Okay.
And I did see it on something I was
I think I saw it on Parcel when it first started.
that would, yeah, that might make sense. Although,
We can't see
yeah, maybe it was. So unfortunately, they have not made a point of doing it on all of the data layers. If you look at our map service, the Interactive Map Viewer, which doesn't have a lot of these natural resource layers that you would want, I was actually the one who put the link to the metadata on every single data, so I know it's there, although they're broken right now because our system just changed. So unfortunately, they can do it, and you could actually contact them and say, gosh, it would be great if you guys had the link to the metadata on all this.
Okay. Yeah, even, I mean, the regular GIS data layers, a lot of them are missing metadata, so.
In terms of when you get the data
When you download.
from us,
Yeah.
we have metadata for all the data layers.
Okay.
But I will say a caveat on that, which is that the metadata generally reflects whatever was given to us, so
Exactly.
the
Right.
quality varies.
Yes.
Yeah. But actually, just very briefly back at our website, if you were to look for data, so any data that you get at our, I'm just gonna get something here. So this little button, the more info button, will take you to this page that's kind of what we think of as metadata light, so it'll give you a quick little bit of information. But one of the most important things, if you look at the full metadata and you don't find what you need, go to this data manager.
Okay.
And again, it may or may not be a good link. Generally, we do try to keep that up so at least it goes to a real person, and that person should be able to pass you along to the next thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't give up just because you're not finding good metadata. So I seem to have turned on the file finder layer, so computer clicks through that one. So that's that.
Conservation planning, oh, you've got the plans for that.
Maybe it was so notice all these other great water-related things. We've got stormwater permits.
That's really important.
Which one?
The 303D.
Yep, the impaired.
waters list and stressed waters. Only for watershed groups that want to apply for grants.
Yep.
A lot of times they're higher priority if they're on a stressed water or impaired water.
The 303D is the one that the EPA is worried about, but we have others. The list of priority lakes and ponds are also important. We can talk about waters that are not quite on that,
The stress list.
the stress list. So you need both of those categories to really understand what's going on.
Do you have all, so it says all available layers in the right-hand corner?
Yes.
Because I know I don't have a lot of these layers. I'm just wondering if I'm,
These basement layers?
no, the ones on the left.
Oh, okay. Layer theme, all available layers. Are you're definitely using the Natural Resources Atlas?
I don't know if I have some of those layers.
Maybe not opening up the.
Yeah, well, but you knew about that, right? About opening.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if I have.
All I can say is scroll down, open stuff up, and
Just gotta keep opening that, the bubble.
yeah.
Probably don't
Yeah.
have these.
I haven't, I've just like.
All right, what else?
Stream layer. What about it, stream layer?
Alright, so here's some of those, these are the impaired, I think.
I doesn't know about the light rule.
Stressed waters, here's some stressed waters in this area.
So we've got, the list of priority streams, that's interesting. Okay, would you go up to that, take off the stressed waters? Go to priority streams and rivers. Yeah, that, the one below.
just all the other lists.
So they don't have the stress list in our state list then? It's like a
It's a
different
separate
list.
category.
Why is that?
So it's like exotic species,
Yeah, yeah.
invasive species, flow altered waters, these are other
The 303
stresses impacting waters.
Yeah, the 303 list is our A list actually.
I just want to point out another way to kind of choose something and get into the attribute data for it is up in these tools, each of these words in the gray area is actually a little tab. There's an identify query tab. And so there's all these different ways to identify. And identify generally means get into the attribute data for features that you see. So if I do polygon identify, and then I basically draw a polygon, and when I double click to tell it I'm done, so again, it's saying, well, what kind of data is there underneath where she has drawn this polygon, and you can see that we have impaired. We've got brook.
Does it draw that polygon for you? So I saw that you drew it, but
It's a
it doesn't
temporary-
keep it, okay.
No, but you can draw a polygon.
Yeah.
This is just an identify tool.
Okay, oh, okay.
So here's the duration and here's the rest of the attributes. And again, a link to watershed management page of that. So if you do want to draw stuff on here, you can see there's a draw tab. And for the same way, draw a polygon. And then it does stay. And actually, you can draw things on here and then export them as shapefiles.
Right.
So you can, basically, you're turning them into, you're creating geographic data for doing this if you want to. Or you can just draw it and then you can make it disappear again.
Can you, you might explain this later, but can you draw a polygon and like clip to it in this program to download, or do you have to download, if you were to download data layers from the atlas, would you have to download the entire data layer? Could you get it from a
No.
particular?
When you download, you can download just, let's see.
Like by extent or something?
I sees it before I do. Export.
I saw something. I saw export
There we go.
map.
No, export map is just a map image.
Do you have to draw something
I know there's
first?
something like download layers
Oh, no.
or something.
Well, you can, this is not what I'm looking for, but you can, so you can download your map image and actually make it a geographically referenced image, which means you would be able to pull it into a GIS program. But there is there's just an export data function.
But then it's just as a georeference image, so you're not actually getting the layers.
Right.
Right.
Is it snap? There's snap too.
No, that's if you're drawing something you wanted to, like if you wanted to draw.
What happens if you save?
Save actually means you're saving a project. So let's say I was doing stuff and I had maybe drawn stuff on here, or I just had the data layers I wanted on here, and I wanted to be able to either show it to someone else or come back to it later. So I would save this as a project. And what it does is it saves this little GVSP file. And that file contains information about what I was zoomed into, where I was zoomed into, what layers I had turned on or off. It actually saves copies of anything that I drew or any data that I uploaded, which if you're interested, I can show you how we do that. But other than that, it's really just remembering kind of the settings. It's remembering stuff about what I was doing and where I was. So generally, it's a small file, but if you upload data or if you have a lot of objects that you've drawn on there, it'll be a little bit bigger.
And so it only opens up into this web browser, it won't open up into ArcGIS.
Right, and more specifically, your computer is not going to recognize what it is or how to open it, so you can't just go double click on it. You have to, when you come back, say a week later, you would go in here and you'd go to that little icon right next to it that says Open Project, right? So you'd go into the viewer, you'd say Open Project, and then you navigate to where you would save that little file, and you'd open it up and it would look exactly the way it was the last time you saved that file. And that also means you can share that with other people, because you can email that little file to someone. As long as you explain how they have to open it, they go into the atlas, and it'll work actually, no, I shouldn't say that because I don't know that. They'd go into the atlas, they'd say, open that file, they'd go to wherever they saved that file, and they'd see exactly what you saw. Now, keep in mind, at that point, it's a whole separate document, which means as soon as they start interacting with it, it's now different from the one you sent them. It's like sharing a Word document, but as soon as they start editing it, it's their Word document. So this doesn't give you the ability to share stuff online. That's one thing that like Google Maps is, and actually ArcGIS Online do provide. Are there other
Export to shapefile might be what you're looking
Oh,
for.
yes,
See
where
it,
is
if you
it?
look under the results on the left, under view history, it says refine results to view export to shapefile.
Well, yeah, that's when you do a selection.
Okay, so that would just,
No, that's a good point, but I swear there was an option up there.
Yeah, there is, it's where you can just save it as a file that can, so it's with the mapping and export, I think. So identify query is not there, how about?
Well, so wait, you're talking about
They're getting.
print export map? That, I mean, that gives you the option to do an image.
No, it's not,
essentially.
it's not there.
we can move on to, and I can just look for it later.
Yeah,
To get off
as we
topic.
look at this, if anybody sees that, I just don't understand why, because I mean, just the other day, I saw it, and I'm pretty sure he hasn't taken it out. Are there any other data layers you want me to go into, or should I focus more on the tools and the things that you can do?
The road erosion risk analysis?
Yes,
the-
thank you. That was another one I was
Under stormwater.
Okay, so under the stormwater infrastructure, there is the road erosion risk ranking. This has gotten a lot of, been talked about a lot lately. And as you can see, it just highlights little segments of road.
Yeah, I was on the group that helped develop this, and this is very helpful for towns that want to identify road-related or high-priority erosion spots, at least to go take a preliminary look, and ranks segments high, medium, and low, or it doesn't have any ranking, which is generally. So it's based on where the road is located in relation to the river corridor, how close it is, where there's a stream crossing, where there's erodible soils, and some other parameters, and it just kind of focuses, if you're working with a town on, and you want to help them do a road erosion inventory, for example, we can take this out in the field with you and go to those sites. So instead of looking at 50 or 60 miles of town road, it'll take you to maybe 2 or 3 dozen sites. Yeah, so it really saves a lot of time.
So if I couldn't find that layer,
Over here?
or if I didn't know the name of it, how could I find it by using, I think it is identify query.
Either I do, even if they're search.
Yeah, to
To find the data layer,
find that data layer.
Is there a search?
there's not really a search there's a search function to find features. But I don't think there's really a search function to find data layers. I think you just have to dig around, which I know there's a lot of data in here, so that's not a minor task. Yeah.
So with that one, if you right-click on it, it'll tell you why it was ranked high, medium, or low. The road setting.
Right, and actually I just opened up the, So is this what you mean, the attributes about
Right.
those different things you
Yep.
just described? Yeah. So wetland flooding, culverts, highly erodible soil, slope constraint, stream, road gradient, distance to stream, hill slope,
Are those
and
in,
then the final one.
And I think that's another layer that works well with this one is if we pull the river corridor delineation.
Yes.
That's really important for a lot of things that folks in the room would be looking at. But you can see how close that road is. If it's within the new river corridor delineation, generally 3 channels on either side of the stream. So you can see that road segment is right in within the river corridor.
like last year?
There's that red line is Route 15, I think.
Is the data in meters or feet?
When you say the data, do you mean the
Well, like we were
attributes?
just looking, yeah, the attributes.
So that's going to depend on each attribute, and that's where the metadata. So I don't know if everybody knows what metadata is. It's the information about the data that generally will explain things like, what units is this in, or what does this code mean?
So is there a way to, like, when we just went to Jim's example of what was it, the soil erosion hazard?
Road erosion
the-
risk analysis.
The roads, yeah, so it had distance from stream, I think, and just had 173. Like, do you have to then go into the metadata to see if it's in feet or meters? I'm assuming it might be feet, but is that like, that's what you have to do for almost every,
Well, it's going to be the same for each, yes, you're going to have to do it for each data layer if it's
Yeah.
not explicit in
Right.
the attributes.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you look closely, so it's worth looking, sometimes in the attributes it will actually say, there might be another attribute that says
Sure.
units,
Units,
if you're
okay.
lucky.
Yep.
Or it would be inherent in the name of the attribute, which would be the ideal thing.
Mhm.
But yeah, if it's not obvious to you in that way, then unfortunately, that means you have to dig for the metadata.
But for
So-
this, you don't really need to know that, because if you want to know the length of the road, you can just measure it.
Right.
Well, but you were saying
But it
like
would
the
be-
distance to stream or something. If-
Right, so you
Yeah.
can measure that.
That's,
But
although,
like-
although actually, to be honest, be a little bit careful of that, because when you're getting into that kind of scale on here, it's not that accurate, but
Yeah.
yeah, it can probably.
I was just thinking, like, if you're out there collecting the data, I mean, as a scientist, you should be recording. If it's in feet or meters, you know,
Oh, they
and that
did.
should be
Yeah,
listed
they did,
somewhere.
but remember, the process of out in the field, collecting it, and then turning it into GIS data,
Yeah.
potentially 2 totally different things. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that the information is in the metadata. That
Right.
is the type of information that definitely would
Depends
be
on
in
the
there.
projection it's in and things like that.
Right.
Say that
It depends on the projection it's in and that kind of thing too.
Well, no, that's 2 different things. So there's the data itself, sort of unconnected in a sense from the geospatial aspect of it. The data itself, as you say, you know, as a scientist, you're obviously keeping track of what your units are, and hopefully you're being consistent in your units, and you've got that recorded somehow in your way of collecting data. When you create the geospatial data does have a projection. It's going from, you know, it's being created as part of a flat mapping system, a coordinate system. And all of our data, if you get it from our website, from our data warehouse, is in Vermont state plane, meters,
Yep.
and then NAD 83. And, but that doesn't matter, really. The only reason that meters matters is if you are using a GIS system and you're bringing in different data layers,
Right.
and you need to know whether they match up or not. And to be honest, it doesn't even matter that much in the GIS, because the GIS can do all the mathematical conversions that it needs to. So in terms of like measurement and everything, that doesn't matter, because
Yep.
the software all does the
Okay.
conversions it needs to. So like when we measure on here, as you pointed out, we can measure. And so we turn this on, and actually notice that, you know, by default it's set to feet, but we can change this. We can make it whatever we want. And I can measure maybe just from here, the road. And there's something that labels it for me. And I think I can even change it. Yeah, I can change it after the fact. It's kind of cool. Just in case it's ever useful, if you're ever going between like field work and looking at the map, It can be useful to know that you can find a place on this map using lat long. So if you're out in the field and you collect a lat long and you want to find it on the map, you just click on new and then you plug in the lat long, or if you have it in some other system like state plane, and notice that you can choose decimal degrees, you can choose degrees, minutes, seconds, and then you plug it in and it will take you there and it will mark that spot on the map. If you're looking at the map and you want to, let's say you're out in the woods somewhere and you want to be able to get back to, you want to go to that place in reality, you can plot a point on the map and it'll tell you the lat long. You can note that down and put it in your GPS.
Where did you give it just then?
So in measurement.
Oh, on plot, okay, I see.
Yes, and it's new and plot, and I can never remember which is which, so you just have to hover over them and read the description. There's also this cool profile tool. I'm not sure how useful that is. I found it very useful when I planned a little bushwhacking hike behind my house in Bolton and dragged this little line across the valley. You can see that I'm drawing a line. Click OK. And it was actually very interesting because I dragged a line from sort of where we started over the ridge down to my neighbor's house where we ended, and found out that my side of the ridge was very steep and her side of the ridge was very gradual. It was just very interesting to realize, like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. That's why it was we were like hiking vertical on my side and her side was like a small. But so that this is just sort of a neat, easy to use tool.
It's good for AOP.
AOP?
Yeah.
How far the culvert goes down?
Yeah, and what the profile of the stream is if you're looking at the streamlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you do it?
And then the other tool that's on here that's really cool. Here we are. Nope. The other one that is kind of neat, and I need to turn on the stream.
Way down. Into watershed protection. Oh, maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe it was.
You were right, sorry.
I don't know. It's
No, it's not up there, I think it's the watershed. I mean, up above. Up above. Down. In our base map code.
There, water, oh, right, they are turned on, so I just.
I think the stress waters are on, so it turned to yellow. Stress waters.
I'll just do that.
Even just something they can look at before they go out into the stream to do the assessment.
So you know the person who owns a horse farm off Joyner Brook?
I don't actually. Do you?
I would love to get to know them.
Oh, you mean the horse farm that's on Joyner Brook,
Yes.
you mean? Yeah, I always thought it was an interesting place
Is
to.
it a small farm permit coming out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll personally visit them.
Was that the meeting in River
Yeah.
Junction yesterday?
Yeah.
Ag and water quality?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Hard.
I had a woman from at the national person from Ag came up to my office for a meeting after that, and she was kind of like, I just needed to get out of the office. Getting very tense down there. Okay, so here are our streams. And let's see how well I can do this. So, delineate watershed. The way this works,
Is that working?
it is, it's
All
back.
right.
Yes, it's back. So So the way it works, and honestly, the times I had tried it in the past, it didn't really work for me, so I was kind of like, the guy who runs this whole website I now sit behind him. So I was like, so Eric, I'm going to this thing on Friday, I need to be able to demonstrate this. And finally now I understand, it was a very simple thing, I just didn't quite get it. So you drop your point somewhere near the bottom of the watershed that you're interested in delineating. I'm sure you guys already knew this, but I was, oh, now I know it doesn't work. I was just sort of randomly dropping it somewhere, and then it really didn't work. So I'm going to try dropping it here.
You dropped it on the stream, okay.
Well, I think,
Gotcha.
yeah. And he actually explained to me how he had to come up with a script that basically told it to search around for the USGS data that it needed. Because, you know, if you don't drop it on exactly the right pixel, it doesn't really work. But so it'll search within a certain distance, but if you're too far away from it, it won't work. Yeah, so it basically then uses this USGS data that I think we don't really see here to figure out the boundaries of that watershed. And then again, once it's created it, you can actually export that data, bring that data out if you want to use it in the GIS system. Or you can just have it on here as a visual thing. Oh, come on.
So does it come up as raster or vector data?
That's a good question. I think it's raster data, because that was part of what was so confused me when I was screwing it up. I was basically trying to define tiny little watersheds, and I'd end up with like a few squares or rectangles. So I'm pretty sure that it's vector data. Well, it's either that or it's raster data that's being drawn based on raster, vector data based on raster, so I'm not quite sure. All right, let's check again.
So even though it's not working now, that's a really
It
good
worked
tool
yesterday.
for AOP. So if I'm at a culvert to figure out what the watershed.
You can just go right to USGS stream stats too.
Well, so he actually did this because he felt like, or because some people felt like stream stats was pretty hard to use.
Yeah.
So for the non-GIS user, I think they felt like this was,
The good thing with stream stats is you can get different flows, the 10, 25-year flow or 15-year flow for that.
Oh, really?
For that at that point in the watershed, for like sizing culverts and stuff.
yep, it does make sense.
It is clunky though.
To get more.
It seems like you could drop down.
I've used this a lot even before.
This tool?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, there was some kind of a bug that caused them to have to turn it off, and then he seemed to have figured out how to get around it or deal with it. And when I tried it the other day, it definitely worked.
Yeah.
So I can't really see, but that blue circle dot, that's your
Yeah.
pour point?
That's my point, and it's kind of working to try to, let's see if it works this time, but to try to define the watershed. And if it works, we're going to see a nice blue area show up defining that watershed.
Maybe it doesn't like really small watersheds.
Oh,
there you go.
I want to get to even name it. Test. I don't know right now. There. Oh, right, you can do watershed after watershed.
No, let's just look at it.
I'm just happy with this one. So there's my watershed. And
Cool.
actually we could turn on, so as you can see, I could download it at this point. And it's just, I guess I turn on contours just because.
And can we
So
look at
load it as a layer that would then appear on your layers list? Or as
No,
a
that
picture?
so download means literally export it and then bring it into like a GIS program.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
This actually does show up on your layers list. So whenever you draw something or create something like this, if you go all the way to the bottom, which in this case takes a while, graphic layers. I don't know why they call it that, because it's a drawing, but it does have the geographic aspect as well.
Can you right click and get attribute data or there get attribute data on that watershed?
Well, it's not going to have a lot of attribute data, but yeah.
So could you then, and I kind of asked this before, but I was asking about exporting. So I see there's like a results for. Could you then, let's say you wanted to find all the conserved land within that watershed, could you then do that and have it come up with like the acreage or whatever falls into
Ooh, so are we doing
that boundary?
Yeah, so at the very, yes, you can do that. I'm trying to think if,
Yeah, but then I had to clear
I'm trying to think whether you can do it in the automatic analysis type way that I think you're really wanting, or whether you have to kind of do it manually by essentially outlining the watershed.
And you're
But
using
let's get the conserved
data
data.
that you have, that's, oh my gosh.
I think all it's doing, when you delineate a watershed, all you're doing is you're taking master data and then finding all the pixels that like line up in the watershed, so then it's creating a vector of that, so it's not linking directly to, because you just created a watershed, it's not like existing.
So if you were to use that layer for
The stream
culvert,
is linked to the streams.
it wouldn't make sense because you'd have to be lower on the watershed. So if I'm looking at a high elevation culvert, you're saying that it wouldn't work because you're not low enough?
Well, all it would do is define the watershed above that. That's the thing I learned from Eric that I hadn't understood before. So yeah, if you're clicking on the spot where that culvert is, it's going to direct you above.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because yeah, you're wanting to know what the water flow is.
Right. So it works now. That's great.
You may have answered this already, but obviously you said you can draw your own point or shape
Yes.
or polygon. Can you then link that to a spreadsheet with your own attribute data? Or
Not automatically, no, but you can output it as a shapefile.
and then link it and then
Well, and then link it or just add attribute data to it too.
Yes, I gotcha.
But no, not within this. And I'm just trying to find the, I can't remember where the conserved land is. I'm sure it's in here somewhere. So the short answer to your question is I don't think you can do that automatic kind of analysis
Okay.
where you're saying, use this polygon
Yeah.
to
So I
select.
would have to bring it into GIS to do that.
Well, no, not necessarily. There's a manual way to do it that's not that hard, because if you have this polygon here, and if you turn on your other layer, and you say, I'm gonna, doing identify, and I'm gonna do a polygon, or even freehand, and you basically kind of do your best to draw, it's a little hard to see on here, it's drawing a black line, but draw around the edge of it. And, depending on how carefully you need to do it, how big
snap
it
to
is.
that or no? Can you snap to the edge?
Yes, snap.
No.
Snap to. But then can you use that?
I'm wondering whether that.
Yeah, then the thing that you've drawn, I don't think it's not an identified tool, so. There's just slight
How
chance.
would you snap to biomonitoring sites? What do you mean that?
I think that just means that if, let me just see if I can snap to my thing. So I think what, I don't. Stream river.
Yeah, try it.
All right, so if I say snap to stream river, get drawing area.
If you just click that box, does it just do it automatically?
Select layers to snap to, hold control while drawing to perform
From
snapping. All right, so I selected a layer, I did control.
But that's going to snap to the streams, not to the boundary.
Yeah, no, I know, I don't think it's giving me, it's not giving me the option.
Oh, I see. So then I could get the exact length of the stream,
Right.
especially if I were like measuring it.
Okay.
Could you do it with a measure function?
Yeah, see, I think this is only allowing me to draw just an object, which unfortunately isn't giving me all the functionality of selection or.
Figure out how you do that.
Query,
So
though.
like playing around.
I'd love to know how to do more query.
Right.
So if we draw a polygon around that watershed, then we can do a query, is what you're saying?
Right, or then we can do a, actually, let me take all this back.
So what's our clue?
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
Query layer. That was not alphabetical. So what I think this means, and I apologize, I haven't really used the query very much, but I think this is saying that if we have a data layer in here and we have perhaps selected part of that data layer, like let's say there was a watershed layer that we used and said, all right, this is the watershed I'm interested in, I've selected, I've used the identifier or something to select it. Yeah, I've used the selection tools, is that right? Can I do that? Well, it's telling me that I can use a data layer. No. It's telling me I can query within that data layer. That's what it's saying. So, so no, I don't think we can use this for that kind of analysis.
Can we use it for something else? So
So,
let's say,
right, so we can query for features within a data layer.
so let's say we want the Winooski River and we want to know all the, well, I don't know. No, that wouldn't
It
work.
looks like for this one, what they're saying is like select all the rivers that are over a certain size or something like that.
Right.
But could you also do, I want all the biomonitoring sites on Joyner Brook?
If Joyner Brook is a feature, is an attribute rather within the monitoring sites, like if it identifies.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah, then yeah.
All right, because you could do query layer could be biomonitoring sites, and then field name or value could be Joyner Brook or something.
But then how would you get the biomonitoring layer in there so it would know?
So query layer, biomonitoring sites.
Oh, and then the field names come up.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
you could do locate, or I think it was up above.
So location name, and then under value would be Joyner Brook. Is that
Yeah.
what you would do?
And you get field values.
Oh, this is very much like GIS.
Yes.
So you have to know the operators and how they work.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
and that's all GIS. Like,
Well, it is, to be honest, I'm sort of, I mean, yes, this is familiar to me because I have done a GIS, but I'm just now going, oh, look, I need to click on add. So you
Yeah.
pick your field name, you click add,
yeah,
you pick an operator, it puts it in.
yeah.
Field value, I wonder, it doesn't look like it'll pull it up for you.
Like Joyner Brook.
Yeah, so maybe if.
So you have to spell it just right.
Well,
You
this is
just
what I was,
put-
this is
you
where I
just
was
say Joyner.
hoping it was gonna say, like, show me all the values, or
Right.
add all that, or something.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think this is one of those things where you have to know, is it all caps?
Yeah.
Does it
So I would just
spell it
say,
out?
could you just say Joyner and then it would,
Well, it's equals, or here, like, let me try like.
Probably what you could do is if you went in and you went to identify and clicked on Joyner Brook and looked at the attributes, it would tell you, you would see exactly how it's spelled.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you could go in and do the query.
Is there any possibility that one biomonitoring site, they have Joyner spelled one way and so,
Knowing
Consistent.
data the way I do, I'd say there's definitely a
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
This is a 5-minute warning, just so you guys know.
oh, run. I don't like this.
I don't think my spelling.
Well, at least I figured it out so I can.
Yeah, it's
just
there.
get someone to let me know it wasn't so hard. What's a railroad well finder? And who would need it?
Mine's water wells within 200 feet of the railroad rail thing. Who wouldn't want to know that?
They're like paying us extra money to put that in.
I'm sure there was a reason. They wouldn't have put it in there, honestly, if there wasn't a reason. Does anybody care about uploading local data?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just point out, one really nice thing is, again, if you collect GPS data, you can just bring GPX data, which is kind of the native format of GPS. So if you have a GPS, you collect data, you should be able to output it as a GPX file without any special software or anything. If you do that, then all you have to do is click on this, navigate to wherever you've signed it.
What did you click on?
It just says add
So this is in the upload
Okay.
area, and it's
Okay.
add GPX data.
Okay.
And it gives me some kind of a warning about something. Make sure you don't have any special stuff in there. And then you'll just navigate to, oh goodness. Of course I do. find a GPX file, you upload it. It works, I've done it. And as CSV files, so that would be, you know, if you have a table that has lat long in it, latitude and longitude in it.
Wow, so I could create an Excel file with that long in it and then basically
Yeah.
upload it.
And keep in mind, you're probably going to have to fuss around with it in terms of making sure the format is right, and it's going to have that it's recognizing it, but it should be able to handle it. I don't know off the top of my hand whether it matters whether it's decimal degrees, to use minutes, seconds. Decimal degrees is probably easier to get the format right. And then add shapefile. So this can be useful both if you've created data, but also if you need to get data from VCGI that for whatever reason isn't in this. As long as it's not too big, because there's a limit on size, so kind of limit it to your area of interest. And the main thing that you have to remember is what this little thing says, which is there are actually 3 files that you need in order to upload a shapefile. So just as an example,
I think every point has to have it. You would have an ID number and then.
For instance, if I wanted to put county boundaries on here, I would need to click on the one that ends in .dbf, .prj, and .shp, all 3 at the same time, and then open them to get them to show up on here. I don't have permission. Whatever.
Or they.
Administrator privileges on my own laptop.
So what do you owe? You have to get all of the DBX, PRJ,
Yeah.
SHP.
And don't worry about remembering that, because just remember that it'll tell you, as soon as you click on this,
Yeah.
you get this little thing that says, please select all files, and it lists them here. So if you're at all confused about that, just write them down. But to be honest, when you go to look for them, you will see them.
Shows up.
That's what, yeah, exactly. That's what you will see. So just remember there's 3 files, and you should see them all. Just, I'm not sure why this isn't working right now. We just switched over to the state system, so it may have to do with that. Figure out how to do that. Yeah, so adding data is relatively easy. Now, if you have any experience or interest in map services, so these are map layers that are served to you over the internet. If you know about that, you can add those as well. So like from either, if you have some link to A&R services, or if you get them from the VCGI website. To be honest, I'm not sure what is available. Well, or you can get it from a federal agency. There might be something from a federal agency actually that would be useful. That would make the most sense in some ways. Because I don't know that there's really anything on our website that wouldn't either already be here or would be pretty extraneous. But if there is something, you just have to understand how map services work. You have to have an internet connection, which you do anyway for this to work. And then you just have to have the URL to link to it.
Leslie, before we finish up, I'm curious about, there's all those other atlas tools. What are the differences? Because I know there's BioFinder.
Yep.
And how is that different from what's on the Natural Resources Atlas and some of those other?
Well, actually, BioFinder's on the Natural Resources Atlas,
Okay.
and the Natural Resources Atlas is on BioFinder. So the difference, BioFinder is just a very specific tool that was created it was created in response actually to concern about siting wind towers. That was the original kernel behind it. But what they ended up creating is actually pretty cool, and I just want to show. So what I clicked on by accident before, these tiered contribution of biodiversity. I'm not sure why it doesn't give you the legend, but it's basically just 5 categories, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think the dark purple perhaps is the one that's like the high level, meaning it, is that right? Yeah, the top, so the top tiers mean they, based on all these data layers that they included in this analysis, that they weighted, those particular spots on the map have the highest of the 5 levels of biodiversity as indicated by these data layers.
Okay.
That include physical environment, measurement of flora and fauna, all sorts of many different factors. And the neat thing is that not only do they give you this fairly simple result of the analysis, they also give you access to all the data layers. And on the BioFinder site itself, you'll get links to the science and the information behind how they made all these decisions. So if you want that, you can access it.
We've used it in basin planning, or we're starting to use it now. I've used it in the plan I'm working on now to target riparian areas. So if we have a tier 1, tier 2 area identified on the map, and then there's a gap of a lower tier, and then a small distance, and then another connecting another tier 1, tier 2 area that we want to connect two important habitats together. It could be wetland habitat or riparian habitat or protecting forested headwater areas. Has a lot to do with the wildlife travel corridors too. Folks are working on.
Yeah, so and it was also, I think, designed with the idea that it's sort of maybe municipal level or watershed level or something as an appropriate level of planning tool.
And who collected that data? I mean, was it the natural community, the natural heritage folks? Was it
Most of that data already existed. Actually, I think all of the data already existed.
Okay.
So, and this is true in general of all this data that we're looking at and talking about. It's all collected by different people for different reasons at different moments in time. May or may not have been updated, which is one of the reasons it's good to look at the metadata, because if that time aspect of it matters to you, you might want to check into that. Who created it? Why did they create it? Sometimes your assumptions about the data may or may not match up with why it was created. So there's a lot of...
I think Jens was setting that up. I was on some of the meetings.
Yep. But honestly, there were a lot of different scientists at the Agency of Natural Resources involved in making the decisions about what weight they were going to put on the. There were different teams of people, and then they would get together and decide which data layers they were going to use, what weight they would have, how it would all go through the analysis. And then they ran it, and then they even changed stuff as they saw how it came out, because sometimes. I just wanted to point out that there's a link right from the atlas to the river corridors FAQ. So the river corridors data, when you do that left click just to open this up, you'll see down at the bottom there's a link to the FAQ. And that's just got a lot of really good information. And then I never did get to the flood ready stuff, but I think I'll get to that too in here. Where's this? Here. Has everybody looked at the flood ready site? So it has, it basically has a viewer that also uses the same system, although it's a slightly different version of it that's a lot simpler, and also can be used on mobile devices, whereas the ANR Atlas cannot.
No, the ANR Atlas can be.
They mobilize.
I have an app.
For the ANR Atlas or for the
Yeah.
Flood Ready Atlas?
No, ANR app. I can.
Is it did you get special access to like a test thing? Because
No, it's under
I
the.
literally just heard Eric say this to someone the other day, sitting behind me, that it's not because, and I know what, it's because it uses,
It's under Esri.
that's not, okay. He created an ArcGIS online version of it.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So it's not.
actually, that's a really good point. It's the same data layers. It's all the same data layers pulled in as a service to an Esri ArcGIS Online map, and Esri ArcGIS Online does give you. Yes, thank you.
And it's confusing, really confusing to try to figure out how to put the layers on.
So the difference is going to be the tools. The tools are not going to be at all the same, but the data layers are in my mind. I've forgotten. I actually heard him say that too.
Yeah.
All right, I was thinking of the link to the like that it was right here.
I gotta check out this photo. Yeah, I haven't done that at all.
It's great. It's great. There's so many
So here's the Flood Ready Atlas page. And the nice thing about this page is that it really explains everything. whereas many of our mapping tools are not explained quite as well ahead of time. So if you like this map interface, but if you find the A&R Atlas a little bit overwhelming and the things that you want are on here, this is a very good map interface, and you can just, at this page, you can look up everything that will explain to you what everything means. Like, for instance, I was looking at this and it had, it has, making it happen is one of the data layers. And I was like, well, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. So one of the things, again, they're trying to make it simple, so they're not overwhelming you with tools and data layers, but that makes me frustrated because I want the data layers. So making it happen, well, what the heck does that mean? And even this doesn't really tell me what it means. But back at the website, it does actually explain all this, which is really nice. So right down here.
So is this one geared mostly toward municipalities, or?
I would say yes. Not necessarily exclusively, but yes. So making it happen, what Vermonters around the state are doing to the Vermont budget. And then it goes into more detail.
I think it's like stories, right? And
The making it happen thing, yes, that's right. So if you zoom into where you actually see some of these, and it basically just colors towns, if they are towns that are making it happen.
For those that have maybe flood plain erosion hazard zones. Flood erosion hazard zones.
So here's Richmond. Richmond's doing something. Get the story.
today, April 10th, it said. I think Ned was, last time I talked to him, he was looking for people to submit stories to Making It Happen, because he goes out there and tries to find them, but there's probably a lot of things that are happening that like he's not aware of. So he was like reaching out to people to say, hey, if you're making it happen, please send us your stuff so we could populate this map.
Shows you which towns are national flood insurance. So anyway, sorry I went over. The other thing is that I have handouts here that are really just, all of you actually seem pretty interested in GIS more, in a little bit more depth than I thought you might be. So you might be interested in this. It's just a very much an overview of options and resources. But most important thing is it has my contact information on it. Oh, my email's wrong. But, so if you're interested in taking this, you're welcome to. And you can always contact me. My name's on our website and on all the pages. So don't hesitate to call me either with general questions, questions about any of the online viewers. As you can see, I'm not necessarily an expert in all of them, but I can poke around in there, and I have people sitting near me that I can talk to. And so I'm happy to help if I can.
So are you still called VCGI, but you're
We
just
are.
through the agency of, what was it, Commerce?
Commerce Community Development. So we are VCGI, a division of ACCD. And our mission has not changed. Honestly, over time, things will probably evolve, but as this change was happening, there was a lot of interest in making sure that we continue to serve the wide world. We're not like becoming ACCDs or the state's solely interior focused agency. So, so we should be able to continue to do that.
Thank you,
Yes,
Leslie.
thank you.